you have any problems, turn off your camera so you can stay anonymous. And yes, any questions, just put them in the chat, or you can even unmute. We have a small enough group today to keep it interactive. So great to have you here. Let me start with a really quick introduction to Turn, for those of you who don't know who we are. Turn is a social enterprise based in London, started in 2016 with a specific vision of building a world where refugees have a fair chance to build a livelihood. As I'm sure many of you know, that is very much not the case at the moment. We look to do that through our mission statement, which is enabling refugees to thrive through the power of their own ideas. How we do that is through building and growing refugee startup ecosystems and marketplaces specifically tailored to the needs of refugee entrepreneurs. So that really is our speciality. Our entire focus is on building programs and solutions that meet the needs of refugee entrepreneurs. And we believe that they have the potential to succeed and contribute to local communities and economies. And indeed, our slightly crazy 2025 dream is to try and unlock some of that potential by working with 4,000 refugee founders and enabling 2,000 of them to launch their own sustainable businesses by 2025. That is definitely crazy, but it's slightly less crazy because it's not just through our own work, but we want to work in partnership with other organizations across the UK and actually in North America to expand business support services. So not just doing this by ourselves, but also in partnership. So that's a very quick intro to our work. As I mentioned, we've been running since 2016. So in terms of what we've been up to in these last 5 years, well, we've built 3 programs. I'm going to show you what those programs look like in a second to give you an idea of the type of work that goes into building business support for refugee founders. We have worked with just under 400 refugee entrepreneurs, actually now just over 400 entrepreneurs in that time. We've helped start 70 new refugee-led businesses. Our programs have scaled into 4 countries through partners in Western Europe and now also into the US. We launched the first online marketplace for refugee entrepreneurs in the UK called the Anchor Collective. So if you ever want to buy from refugees, please do go check it out. I'll put the link into the chat later on. We have currently got 12 refugee-led brands on there and over 100 products that tries to close the gap between consumers and refugee-led products. We work with brands like Ben & Jerry's and a lot of corporate partners. So that's one of the areas that our work intersects with Ren, really trying to encourage innovation and collaboration with the private sector. And we have worked very closely with Michelle Ritchie from the University of Loughborough and other researchers to really understand what the impact is of self-employment and entrepreneurship on refugee founders. And one of the key messages I wanted to share today really is that 5 years ago, during the Syrian resettlement crisis, there was a lack of focus on the entrepreneurial potential of this community. And in that time, a lot of that has changed in the UK, and there's a much greater understanding of the potential within these communities to start businesses and what's needed to allow them to succeed. And so I really hope that we can show you that when it comes to supporting some of the Afghan populations that are coming in, we need to recognize early on that they have the entrepreneurial potential and the business potential of that community. I'm just going to ask people to stay on mute if you can. I'm getting a little bit of feedback just for now during this initial intro. So that is Turn in a nutshell. And what I wanted to introduce very quickly was our programs. So to give you an insight into the different stages of business support that Turn works across and that goes into delivering the support to our entrepreneurs. We have 3 business support programs that run from very early stage ideas to businesses. The first of those is called Test Flights, which runs for 3 months as a pre-incubator, helps entrepreneurs develop ideas whilst also being in part-time employment. The idea of that is to give entrepreneurs a really clear insight into what it takes to start a business and whether self-employment is for them. That's one of the biggest differentiators between our work and more traditional business support. The majority of the entrepreneurs we work with are still exploring if self-employment is for them and don't yet know whether that is the right opportunity and don't have the time or the capital to be able to afford to explore business. And so one of the things we really want to invest in is making sure that entrepreneurs, refugee entrepreneurs, can make an informed decision about whether entrepreneurship is for them. And that program gives them the space to do that. What we then see is about 60% of entrepreneurs progress into our incubator program called Takeoff, which is focused on business launch. So the entire focus of that program is supporting entrepreneurs through mentorship, through co-working, through access to finance to enter market and start trading successfully. And then we have a growth accelerator program called On Demand, which is one-on-one tailored support. And across those first two programs, we work in cohorts, again, which is quite different to mainstream business support. We work in cohorts with mentorship at every step. They're very intensive, weekly interventions, over 100 hours of content in both programs. On Demand is more flexible, targeted, and tailored to the specific individual needs of entrepreneurs. So this is our ecosystem at Turn. This is what the different phases of self-employment look like. And to give you a taster of the talent in this community and the challenges facing supporting this community, we have about 70% of the founders that apply to Turn that want to either start or grow businesses or have had previous experience starting or managing businesses. And yet less than 10% have access to any form of business support, and even fewer are currently trading in market. So there's a big gap between the business potential of this community and their ability to start businesses. And that's the gap that we're hoping to fill, and we are looking to increasingly collaborate with other organizations to solve. Around these programs, there are other elements that go into our work that recognize the barriers and the complex needs of refugee entrepreneurs. A lot of that is building connections to the mainstream business ecosystem. So we believe that you need targeted support for refugee founders, but that you can build connections to other opportunities. We share 3 to 4 opportunities every week, tying into local business opportunities and employment opportunities that could help our entrepreneurs move forward. A lot of our entrepreneurs face challenges that prevent them from making progress in their business, whether it be housing, employment, mental health. There are a variety of challenges that all of you know can prevent refugees from making progress in their livelihoods. And so we look to make positive referrals to other parts of the refugee sector, some of you who are in the room. And that's a really important part of our work, is recognizing that we only play one part in the refugees' progression or the entrepreneur's progression. And then the last 2 elements that we work on, one is access to customers. I mentioned we have an online marketplace, but we also run pop-ups and a variety of other interventions designed to try and give refugees fair access to customers, because a lot of the entrepreneurs we work with do not have the friends and family that can shout and scream about their business when they start, and we want to close that bridge. And lastly, access to finance. This is a problem that those of you who've worked in this area for a long time, looking at Matt from CFE as well, specifically on this one, have talked a lot about, but we know that there are significant institutional barriers that prevent refugees accessing the finance they need to start and sustain business. The majority of entrepreneurs we work with struggle to access lending from mainstream banks or investment from traditional equity partners. And that's one of the big challenges we look to solve. We've recently established a microcredit fund that can make 0 interest micro loans to refugee entrepreneurs to help them prototype and test business ideas. And hopefully that's the first step on trying to introduce more conclusive credit options for refugee entrepreneurs. So that's a quick insight and intro to Turn's work and how we look to meet the needs of refugee entrepreneurs through our community. I now want to introduce you to some of the brands and some of the founders in our community. These are brands that have launched just in the last few months, and we're going to hear from 2 of the founders today, who we've been working with over the last few years. Firstly, I'd like to introduce Ruby, who's founder of For Her Child. And Ruby's going to have just for 5 minutes or so share a little bit about her journey to becoming an entrepreneur and her aspirations with For Her Child. And so Ruby, I'm going to hand over to you if you'd like to introduce yourself to the room. Ruby, you're just on mute.
Hi, Charlie. So I'm actually signed in on 2 devices. So seeing me twice, hello. It's just one person here, but my one of my devices doesn't seem to have sound output. But hello, everyone. It's lovely to be joining you today. As Charlie said, my name is Refugee, and I am the founder for Her Child. And I was assisted to take that bold step by turn. And without their help, I don't think I would have really gained the confidence to take this journey. So I would like to perhaps tell you a little bit more about what else I'm doing. So as well as being an entrepreneur as a refugee, I am also working at the moment for another charity. And so I work for Helen Bamber Foundation, which does specialize again with refugees and people who've been trafficked. I'm also studying and pursuing a career in human rights law. In terms of what For Her Child does, really the ethos is to assist children to go from asylum to sanctuary. In particular, this focus is around accompanied children who are at risk of facing enforced adoption when in the UK. And it is an organization centered around the mother because that was my personal experience, that I found that whilst my son was in my care, he didn't have his rights, but they became available to him once he was adopted. So our separation was unjust, and we are not alone in experiencing unjust separations. And the particular severity is different for refugees or people still seeking to gain credibility around their asylum application. So we feel that this is an important gap for Her Child to fill. So in terms of what I've learned so far, I've really learned about my capability, and that, my capability can exceed the hurdles that I've referred to already. And in fact, that I can reposition them into more, insightful opportunities, as in a sports day, for example, and a child attempting their track events. It's really about putting that enjoyment into life, back into life for refugees, and that I have the ability to connect with people to access those opportunities for others who are still on that journey, and to find innovative ways to find solutions where separations have already occurred. So in the next 12 months, the aim is around building 4 of the pillars that support the work that we do. Currently, initially we have established the distribution of expression packs which are play materials that we issue to refugee mothers and children to use together. But at the moment, we're currently focused on building our research base. So we have a team of researchers from different spaces, but mainly we approached students from the university, the BPP University, where they are legal students, and they took an interest. So that report will hopefully shed some light on what happens not only to myself and my son, but to other women and children or similar families. And we are also preparing for our second Christmas expression pack drive, bigger and stronger this time than the first attempt. Also, we aim to establish these expression pack drives to a quarterly distribution, and this is to ensure that as many refugee children have the opportunity to play. And it's also a way for us to start to build a connection with the mums. So over time, we will also be trying to build in support that we deliver directly to the mothers, but going back to the research work, our focus really is not to give the parents more to do. It's about giving them time to focus on their children and establishing themselves in a foreign place. So we will be really building on our sanctuary practice model. And this model is designed, is aimed to be designed to empower professionals to see refugees for who they are and what they are capable of and where they genuinely need support. It's a really big hurdle finding help when you, even when you have status, because the support you had before falls away. So there's lots of cracks that we fall through. And with sanctuary practice, I want to give professionals ownership over making a change and collaborate with experts by experience. And in that way, build a sanctuary practice strategy that we hope will become business as usual across as many spaces as possible, the highest possible spaces in the UK. And those are therefore the different things that we will be doing. So again, that's over the next 12 months, building our expression platform, the research that we are currently undertaking, also building sanctuary practice strategy, following the research, and also connecting with parents, with mums, with children, and changing the narrative between these families and professionals. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruby. That's fantastic. And I'm just dropping into the chat. Anyone who wants to see more on Ruby's business and wants to hear more about that Christmas campaign, Ruby, I think you can also share the crowdfunder for that campaign in the link afterwards. And it's lovely to hear from you, Ruby, and to hear all that you're achieving and trying to change the narrative around sanctuary practice in the UK. Ruby, thank you very much. If people have questions for Ruby, I know some of you had a challenge seeing Ruby speak as she was talking, so please feel free to put questions in the chat for Ruby. She's staying here until the end of our breakout. And now I wanted to introduce our second refugee speaker today, who is Ravi. And Ravi is the founder of Panam, who is joining us to talk a little bit about his business. Ravi, if you're there, I'm going to hand over.
Thank you, Charlie. Hello, everyone. My name is Ravi. I'm a refugee. Just came here like in 2014, and I was going through all these, like used to immigration things and all. And then I was I went to a charity called Hallenbumber Foundation, and then they helped me to everything like support, mental health support, and they were running some groups also. So I joined a group called Photography Group, and that changed my life into positive, from darkness to like where I am now actually. So after some time, I was fighting about 5 years to get my papers. And then after that, I noticed, I was a poster in Hallenbumber Foundation about turn. And then I took a picture of that, and somehow I contacted them after I got my refugee status. And then that's how I joined Turn. And then my business is called Pineham, and that is my journey. Actually, it's my journey. And then how I was going through all these trauma and then PTSD from back home. And then when I come here also, it was continuing. And then from the pressure from the home office, all these things. And then somehow the photography group, which I joined at Hallenbumber Foundation, changed my life from in a positive way. And then that's my sort of, like a journey, part of my journey. And then I wanted to start a business, which there are lots of, I think most of the refugees in the UK, they have some part of trauma. And then I hope that any type of art therapy will help them to overcome their trauma. Then I found this photography group, which helped me to overcome my trauma, and plus gave me kind of a focus. How can I, move forward? And then that's the business idea actually. Then I changed it to business. And then what my business does is it's a brand and a platform for refugees and asylum seekers to overcome their trauma, and by creating artwork. And I believe that the same way how I was overcoming my trauma, and I will help the same way to other refugees and asylum seekers. And then the motivation actually for this business was the photography group, which I was going. And then what I learned from Turn was like, without them, this business idea is not actually going to happen. So I didn't know what is that. I only when I joined, I didn't have any idea. And then when I was explaining what I was going through, and then what was my journey, and then they they supported me to create that journey into a business idea. And then now here, and then not only that, I learned about how to research market research and competitors. Who are the other organizations doing the similar things and all, and plus I learned how to test my product, and then they helped me to learn about marketing, and then financial planning, and then there are so many things kind of support. I didn't know that when I joined it's going to be like a real business support, something like that. Actually, they helped me to build from zero, nothing, to a business model which I'm having today. And then the next 12 months, I'm hoping to get some more refugee artists collaboration on board, and then plus I just wanted to sell more of my products, and that is like apparel. I got some prints at the minute. Because last year changed everything, like we didn't have a chance to talk to people. I talked to artists, and then I hope this year is going to be a good year. So that's my short introduction.
Thank you, Ravi. That's fantastic.
Thank you, bro.
And Ravi, I've put your website and your marketplace into the chat so people can buy and see some of those prints that you've talked about from the artists. So if people want to support Ravi, and of course, if you're working with any refugee communities that have artists or budding photographers in the community, Ravi, are you happy for them to connect with you?
Oh yeah, definitely. I'm looking for some more refugee artists, and some more artwork from them to collaborate with me.
Fantastic. Thank you, Ravi. We only have 5 minutes left, so I will keep going. But thank you so much, Ravi and Ruby, for sharing your businesses. And I hope what you got from both of them was how their own experiences have really shaped and created business models that look to solve some of the challenges and some of the inspiration they took from those experiences to improve the experiences of other refugees. And that's really what we see a lot of our entrepreneurs doing is using those experiences to try and transform the environment for other entrepreneurs and other refugees following in their footsteps. So Ravi and Ruby, you're both pioneers, and thank you very much for sharing your stories with us today. I wanted to end really with this on this theme of renewal, which was, when Turn started, one of the reasons why Turn started, it was when we looked at the business potential of entrepreneurs and then looked at what was being provided, there was almost no pre-existing business support. So when we looked at the UK, we saw almost no regions with targeted business support at that time. And as a result, no refugee entrepreneurs receiving targeted business support. And we realized very early on from speaking to founders that was a challenge, that we needed to have business support that specifically met the needs of this community. By last year, the really encouraging thing, and this is one of the, I hope, success stories of the UK refugee sector in many ways in the last 4 years, is the change that this has had. We're now up to business support in 7 regions, not just through our work, but through partners involved in the Home Office pilot that ended earlier this year. And we had over 300 refugee entrepreneurs receiving targeted business support. So that's massive growth in the last 4 years. But that's not only where we want to finish. We want to grow that further so that by 2025, we've grown that to 12 regions and up into Scotland, and hopefully supporting well over 2,000 refugees each year with targeted business support. And we want to do that not just through Turn's work, but as I mentioned, through supporting other organizations with fundraising, with content, with training, with impact frameworks, and with the marketplace that we mentioned earlier. So if you're an organization that is interested in enterprise, then My message really is refer to us if you have entrepreneurs and you want them to access business support. We operate virtually. We can support from any part of the UK, and we run in-person programs in London. The link is bit